You may have heard that he invented the lightning rod and that you're familiar with his work, Poor Richard's Almanac, but do you know how he transformed from a mild colonial reformer into a leader who dared to challenge authority and spearhead the revolution for independence? He is none other than the legendary figure of American independence, Benjamin Franklin. Hello everyone, and welcome to my channel. Today, we will journey through the turbulent currents of 18th century history, delving into the life of Benjamin Franklin, a life full of contradictions and legendary tales, to explore his little-known inner struggles and the turning points of history. Let's begin by discussing the background of the time. In 18th century North America, the British imposed strict control on the colonies, enforcing a variety of taxes and restrictions that made life extremely difficult for the people. In 1706, Franklin was born into a poor candle maker's family in Boston. As the youngest boy in his household, his early education was severely limited by the family's financial constraints. He began attending school at the age of 8, but by 10 he had dropped out to help his father at work. Nevertheless, Franklin's thirst for knowledge was undiminished. At the age of 12, he became an apprentice at his brother James's printing shop, a critical starting point for his lifelong accumulation of knowledge. There, he was exposed to a wide array of books and would read voraciously in his spare moments. Unable to purchase books, he often resorted to secretly reading those in bookstores or borrowing them from friends. His reading spanned a broad range of topics including natural sciences, philosophy, and political science, and this interdisciplinary education laid a solid foundation for his future intellectual development. Through this period, Franklin not only absorbed knowledge from books but also learned to verify and deepen his understanding through practical experience. He began experimenting with writing, anonymously submitting his work to his brother's newspaper, the New England Journal. These articles, noted for their unique perspective and insightful commentary, were well received by readers. Although his brother later discovered that the true author was Franklin himself, the experience undoubtedly boosted his confidence and made him realize his potential in written expression and the dissemination of ideas. With the gradual accumulation of knowledge and experience, Franklin grew increasingly dissatisfied with working solely in his brother's printing shop. In 1723, at the age of 17, he left Boston for Philadelphia in search of new opportunities. In Philadelphia, his printing skills quickly helped him secure a job at a local printing house. His diligence and talent earned him the recognition of his employer, and he soon connected with local intellectuals and business figures, further broadening his social network and horizons. In 1731, Franklin founded North America's first public library, the Philadelphia Library, in Philadelphia. This pioneering initiative provided local residents with a vital resource for accessing knowledge and broke the convention of books being available only to the affluent. By operating the library, Franklin not only disseminated knowledge but also cultivated a habit of reading and a passion for learning among the community. He himself used this platform to continuously enrich his intellectual reserve, exchange ideas with other readers, and further enhance his influence in the world of knowledge. In 1749, Franklin penned a proposal to establish the Philadelphia College, which later evolved into the University of Pennsylvania, one of the cornerstones of higher education in the United States. His educational philosophy emphasized both practicality and breadth, aiming to nurture individuals who not only possessed specialized knowledge but also could adapt to the changing needs of society. The founding of the Philadelphia College marked another significant milestone in Franklin's journey in knowledge dissemination and education, transforming him from a seeker of knowledge into a creator and propagator of it, and thereby making a substantial contribution to the cultural development of the North American colonies. In the 18th century, the wave of the scientific revolution swept across Europe, and Franklin was deeply influenced by it. He developed a keen interest in natural science, particularly in electricity. Between 1743 and 1744, while in Philadelphia and Boston, Franklin observed Dr. Spencer of Scotland conducting simple electrical experiments using glass tubes and Leyden jars, which ignited a strong desire for exploration in him. Later, through his friend Collinson, he acquired numerous writings on electricity along with experimental apparatus, marking the beginning of his own journey into electrical research. In 1752, Franklin conducted his famous kite experiment. On a stormy day, he and his son William took a kite fitted with a metal rod to an open field. As the kite ascended and lightning flashed in the skies, he successfully drew electrical charges from the clouds into a Leyden jar, demonstrating that the lightning above and the electricity produced by friction were of the same nature. This experiment not only confirmed his conjectures about the essence of lightning but also earned him international acclaim in the scientific community. The British Royal Society awarded him the Copley Medal and admitted him as a member, while his scientific writings were translated into several languages and widely circulated throughout Europe. Franklin's scientific spirit also had a profound impact on his political ideas and social activism. Through Poor Richard's Almanac, he disseminated a pragmatic philosophy and moral guidelines. Poor Richard's Almanac, a publication that combined a calendar, weather forecasts, practical advice, and moral maxims, was published continuously for 25 years starting in 1732 and was beloved by the colonists in North America. In the almanac, Franklin used humorous and witty language to impart values such as diligence, frugality, and honesty, while also stressing the importance of resolving problems through experiential learning and rational thought. For instance, he wrote, "Early to bed and early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise, and heaven helps those who help themselves." These sayings not only served as life guidelines for people at the time but also embodied Franklin's pursuit of social improvement. This pragmatic philosophy and empirical way of thinking also permeated Franklin's political activities. He advocated for improving social conditions and addressing livelihood issues through concrete actions rather than remaining confined to theoretical debates. His involvement in public affairs, such as establishing fire departments, hospitals, and militia organizations, reflected his focus on practical results. He believed that it was the government's duty to provide effective services and protection to its citizens, and that scientific knowledge and rational thinking were vital tools in achieving that goal. In the mid-18th century, as the North American colonies experienced economic development and population growth, the relationship between the colonies and their ruling power, Britain, began to change subtly. As a representative of the colonial elite, Franklin gradually involved himself in colonial affairs. His series of initiatives not only had a profound impact on the development of the colonies but also laid the groundwork for his later shift in political stance. In 1753, Franklin was appointed as the acting Postmaster General of the North American colonies, a position that provided him with a unique platform to gain deep insights into the connections and needs among the colonies. During his tenure, he devoted himself to reforming the postal system and established the first national postal service. He meticulously planned postal routes, reducing the delivery time. For instance, a letter from Philadelphia to New York was shortened to 24 hours. He also organized for small, fast package ships to transport mail between the West Indies and Canada, supplementing the transatlantic service provided by the British Crown, and established the first home delivery system in the colonies. These reforms not only improved the efficiency of postal services but also strengthened the exchange of information and economic ties among the colonies. More importantly, The perfected postal network objectively promoted the spread of an independent consciousness among the colonists. With the postal system, newspapers, pamphlets, and other printed materials could be more widely disseminated, enabling people in different colonies to promptly learn about each other's situations and demands. Gradually, common interests and goals began to emerge, and this intercolonial exchange of ideas provided the intellectual and organizational groundwork for the later independence movement. In addition to postal reforms, Franklin's Albany Plan of Union, proposed in 1754, was also of great significance. At that time, as Britain and France increasingly contested for control in North America, Franklin proposed the plan at the Albany Congress as a means to collectively counter the French threat. The plan advocated for the establishment of a unified colonial government led by a president and composed of representatives from the colonies, a structure modeled on the organization of the Iroquois League. Franklin held the Iroquois League in high esteem, viewing it as an exemplar of a sound federal governance system, and sought to emulate it to achieve colonial unity. Although the Albany Plan was ultimately not adopted by the colonial legislatures or the British Trade Committee, it served as a precursor to later American federalism and provided an important reference for the design of the American political system. During this period, although Franklin actively participated in colonial affairs, his primary aim was to seek better development for the colonies within the British colonial framework and to preserve the relationship between the colonies and Britain. He believed that enhancing cooperation among the colonies and maintaining open communication with Britain would serve the mutual interests of both sides. However, as British colonial policies began to shift, this balance was gradually disrupted, and Franklin's political stance started to waver. In the 1760s, in an effort to make up for the fiscal shortfall caused by the 7 Years' War, Britain began increasing its tax burden on the North American colonies. A series of acts aimed at boosting revenue and strengthening colonial rule were introduced, the most representative of which was the Stamp Act of 1765. This act stipulated that all printed materials in the North American colonies, including newspapers, legal documents, commercial contracts, playing cards, and more, had to bear a stamp tax mark in order to circulate legally. This law severely harmed the economic interests of the colonists and violated their political rights, as the colonists had no representation in the British Parliament and therefore no say in these tax policies. As a representative of the colonies, Franklin firmly opposed the Stamp Act. He leveraged his influence in the printing and news industries to publicize the colonists' grievances through newspapers, pamphlets, and other media, urging a boycott of the act. He popularized the slogan, "No taxation without representation," which quickly spread throughout the colonies and became a powerful tool in the colonists' resistance against British rule. To express the discontent of the colonists, Franklin, representing the Pennsylvania colony, traveled to London to petition. At a hearing before the British Parliament, he presented his arguments for repealing the Stamp Act with sharp rhetoric and well-founded evidence. He noted that Americans had always regarded themselves as British and would continue to support Britain if treated with respect, but the implementation of the Stamp Act made the colonists feel betrayed and oppressed. After a 4-hour debate in which Franklin answered 174 questions, his brilliant performance earned widespread acclaim. Ultimately, under intense public pressure, the British Parliament repealed the Stamp Act in 1766. However, Britain did not abandon its plan to tax the colonies. Soon after, new forms of taxation emerged one after another, and Britain even sent troops to America, with the expenses borne by the colonists, further straining relations between the colonies and Britain. Franklin recognized that the British government's attitude toward the colonies had undergone a fundamental change, leaving reconciliation increasingly unlikely. In 1772, Franklin received a series of letters written by Thomas Hutchinson, the governor of Massachusetts, which revealed the British government's oppressive policies toward the colonies and its intent to strip them of their freedoms. Franklin passed these letters on to friends in Massachusetts and circulated them secretly among colonial officials to alert them to the dangers of British rule. However, when these letters eventually became public, they sparked a tremendous uproar. An outraged Boston populace demanded Hutchinson's removal and requested that Franklin represent them in petitioning the king. Franklin accepted this mission, but his actions provoked the strong displeasure of the British government. In 1774, he was dismissed from his post as Postmaster General, and the conflict between him and the British government intensified irreversibly. In 1775, the battles of Lexington and Concord erupted, marking the beginning of the American Revolutionary War. Franklin stood resolutely with the colonists and actively engaged in the independence movement. In 1776, he contributed to the drafting of the Declaration of Independence. As one of the five-member committee, Franklin worked closely with Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, and others, revising and refining Jefferson's initial draft on multiple occasions. Drawing on his rich political experience and exceptional writing skills, Franklin added many important elements to the Declaration, making its language more concise and forceful and its ideas more profound and mature. For instance, he further elaborated on the discussion of natural rights and popular sovereignty, emphasizing that the people possess inalienable rights and that government power derives from the consent of the governed. When government acts against the people's interests, they have the right to overthrow it. These ideas not only provided the theoretical foundation for American independence but also had a far-reaching impact on the political development of nations around the world. On July 4, 1776, the Declaration of Independence was formally adopted, marking the birth of the United States. Franklin's signature on the Declaration made him an essential witness to and promoter of American independence. From a colonial elite who once harbored illusions of British benevolence to a founding father who championed independence and led a revolution, Franklin's journey toward political awakening was fraught with hardship and twists. His transformation was not only a personal intellectual evolution but also an inevitable outcome of the times. In this grand historical transformation, Franklin, with his exceptional wisdom, steadfast conviction, and fearless courage, made an indelible contribution to the independence and freedom of the United States. From 1776 to 1785, Franklin served as the American ambassador to France, and during this period his diplomatic activities played a crucial role in the American Revolutionary War. When Franklin arrived in France, the United States was in a difficult phase of the war, desperately in need of external assistance. With France being an arch-rival of Britain, it became a key target for winning support. Leveraging his reputation in the scientific community and his exceptional diplomatic acumen, Franklin quickly built an extensive network within French society. He frequently engaged with French government officials, intellectuals, and business leaders, winning the respect and affection of the French people with his distinctive charm and witty conversational style. While in France, he actively promoted the American cause for independence, portraying the United States as a newborn nation dedicated to freedom and democracy, thereby eliciting sympathy and support from French society. In 1778, thanks to Franklin's persistent efforts, the United States and France signed the Treaty of Alliance. Under this treaty, France agreed to assist the fledgling United States in achieving independence, while America committed to aiding France in any conflict with Britain. Moreover, neither side would negotiate separately with Britain without the consent of the other, and both parties agreed not to lay down their arms until American independence was formally recognized through a treaty. On the trade front, France and the United States were accorded most favored nation status, with each country opening its ports freely to the other. This treaty secured France as a powerful ally for America, effectively changing the tide of the war. France provided substantial military assistance, including weapons, ammunition, ships, and troops, which greatly enhanced American military strength and laid a solid foundation for the eventual victory over Britain. In 1783, Franklin also participated in the negotiations of the Treaty of Paris. Throughout the negotiations, he fully utilized his diplomatic talents to engage in tough deliberations with the British representatives. He steadfastly defended American interests, insisting that Britain acknowledge American independence and clearly delineate issues such as territorial boundaries and trade rights. After prolonged negotiations, the two sides eventually reached an agreement. Britain recognized American independence and established the sovereignty of the 13 North American states. The signing of the Treaty of Paris marked the official end of the Revolutionary War and the birth of an independent United States. Franklin's key role in these events not only earned the United States international recognition but also created favorable conditions for its future development. In 1787, Franklin participated in the Constitutional Convention as a representative of Pennsylvania. At the convention, he played a significant role in mediating and driving the discussions forward. At that time, the convention faced many challenges, notably the dispute between large and small states over representation. The large states argued for representation based on population to reflect their greater weight in the nation, while the small states, fearing their interests would be overlooked, demanded equal representation for all states in Congress. This controversy had once brought the convention to a standstill. Franklin proposed a compromise solution known as proportional representation. Under this plan, members of the House of Representatives would be allocated according to each state's population, thereby satisfying the large states' demands, while in the Senate every state would have 2 representatives regardless of size, protecting the rights of the smaller states. This arrangement balanced the advantages of the large states with the equality of the small states and ultimately paved the way for the formation of a federal government structure. Franklin's proposal demonstrated his pragmatic wisdom in politics. He understood that balancing and compromising among diverse interests was essential to reach consensus and establish a stable and effective federal government. Beyond his contributions on the issue of representation, Franklin also underwent a significant change in his stance on slavery later in life. In his early years, Franklin owned slaves and even participated in the slave trade, a common practice in the North American colonies at the time. However, as his reflections on human rights deepened and he was increasingly influenced by Enlightenment ideas, he gradually recognized the inherent evils and injustices of slavery. During his time in France, he witnessed how French society criticized and re-evaluated the institution of slavery, which further prompted him to reconsider his own position. Upon returning to America, Franklin actively engaged in the abolitionist movement. He became the president of the Pennsylvania Society for Promoting the Abolition of Slavery and used his influence to call attention to the issues surrounding slavery and to propel efforts for its abolition. He published articles in newspapers, drafted petitions, and expressed the case for ending slavery to both Congress and the public. Franklin argued that slavery violated the core values of freedom and equality pursued during the American Revolution and was a gross affront to human dignity. Thanks to his efforts, the anti-slavery movement gained increased support and attention, laying the ideological groundwork for the eventual eradication of slavery in the United States. Franklin's shift on the issue of slavery not only reflected his own intellectual progress but also mirrored the growing emphasis on human rights within American society during that period. Through his actions, he made a significant contribution to social reform in America, becoming one of the key figures in the nation's struggle against slavery. Franklin's political awakening was shaped by the Enlightenment ideas of the 18th century and the practical spirit indigenous to America, forming a unique system of thought. In terms of his philosophical beliefs, he adhered to deism, believing that God manifested his will through natural laws. This perspective led him to prioritize the exploration of natural principles through reason and empirical experience, driving him to engage in scientific research and achieve groundbreaking discoveries. Politically, he was influenced by John Locke's social contract theory and held that the colonial people had a contractual relationship with the British government, which was obliged to safeguard their rights. However, when the British government enacted measures such as the Sugar Act and the Stamp Act, which infringed upon the rights of the colonists and breached that contract, Franklin maintained that the colonists had the right to resist and fight for their independence and liberty. Franklin's practical spirit was evident in his focus on addressing and resolving social issues. He emphasized tangible results and learning through experience, insisting that theory should serve practice. In various public initiatives, such as founding libraries, establishing fire departments, and promoting educational reforms, he sought solutions based on real needs. For example, when founding the Philadelphia Library, he considered how best to facilitate the public's access to knowledge, raising funds to buy books and setting borrowing rules. This effort resulted in the establishment of North America's first public library, a significant contribution to the cultural development of the colonies. Franklin's political transformation was accompanied by a reconstruction of his identity. In his early years, he tended to identify as British, admiring British culture, institutions, and values. However, as the conflicts between the colonies and Britain intensified, he came to realize that the North American colonies possessed a unique history, culture, and set of interests, and that the people longed for freedom and independence, prompting a gradual shift in his identity. In his autobiography, Franklin crafted the image of a self-made man, emphasizing virtues such as diligence that later became central to American values. His autobiography played a significant role in spreading and fostering a sense of national consciousness among Americans. As American identity deepened, Franklin's sense of civic responsibility also grew. He became increasingly concerned with public welfare, actively participated in public affairs, promoted social progress, and advocated for the widespread improvement of education, putting these ideas into practice. Furthermore, he was deeply invested in social reform, proposing wide-ranging reforms across multiple fields. He championed democratic institutions, the development of industry and commerce, and the protection of the rights of vulnerable groups. These ideas have had a profound and lasting impact on the political and social development of the United States. Against the backdrop of increasingly stark conflicts between the North American colonies and Britain, Franklin was once regarded by some as a traitor. In his early years, he attempted to foster reconciliation between Britain and the colonies, and his activities in Britain were even seen by some as a betrayal of colonial interests. However, as the tensions escalated, he shifted his position and came to recognize the inherently exploitative nature of British colonial rule. In 1775, Franklin wrote a letter to the British people, in which he criticized British colonial governance. In the letter, he exposed how Britain exploited the North American colonies through unreasonable tax policies and trade restrictions that harmed the colonies' economic interests and stifled their development. He argued that the colonists had the right to cast off oppression and pursue independence and liberty, thereby providing a solid theoretical basis for colonial resistance. As the American Revolutionary War advanced, Franklin was sent to France, where he leveraged his personal strengths to win widespread admiration from all sectors of French society. He came to be regarded as an enlightened philosopher by the French, and his efforts secured critical military aid and diplomatic backing for the American cause, earning European recognition for American independence. This success not only bolstered the American war effort but also significantly enhanced Franklin's stature at home. He emerged as a symbol and hero of American independence, building up the political capital that would serve him in his later endeavors. Franklin, one of the founding fathers of the United States, played a key role in shaping the nation's governmental framework. In 1787, during the Constitutional Convention, he advocated for the establishment of a strong central government to maintain national unity and stability, coordinate the interests of the individual states, and address external threats. Regarding the distribution of governmental power, he contributed to the development of a system based on the separation of powers, ensuring that the legislative, executive, and judicial branches remained independent and balanced each other. This framework has become a core feature of the American political system and has served as a model for many other countries. Moreover, Franklin evolved into an enduring cultural icon in the United States. His portrait famously appears on the $100 bill. His epitaph, "He snatched the lightning from the heavens and wrested the scepter from the tyrants," succinctly captures the two major achievements of his life: scientifically, by revealing the nature of lightning through his kite experiment and inventing the lightning rod, and politically, by playing a pivotal role in the American Revolutionary War and helping to dismantle British colonial rule. This epitaph has come to symbolize the American spirit, with Franklin's image and legacy deeply woven into the fabric of American culture and history. Franklin's journey toward political awakening stands as a prime example of personal self-fashioning and value-based decision-making amid the currents of his time. He transformed from a colonial elite who once upheld British rule into a central leader of the American independence movement. This change was not coincidental but rather the result of a confluence of factors. His experience illustrates that political awakening is usually a gradual process, where the accumulation of personal knowledge, broadening social experiences, and deep insight into societal realities play crucial roles. The rational thinking and exploratory spirit he developed through scientific research enabled him to analyze political issues with objectivity and calm, unconfined by traditional views or the constraints of the established order. His accumulated experience in business and social interactions allowed him to understand the diverse interests and demands of various social groups, which in turn enabled him to balance conflicting needs in political decision-making. Furthermore, his international perspective and cross-cultural experiences allowed him to contextualize the North American colonial issues within a broader global framework, garnering essential international support for American independence and state-building. In today's world, political awakening remains a potent driving force behind social progress and transformation. Franklin's story inspires us to maintain an open mind and to boldly embrace new ideas and perspectives when confronting complex and ever-changing political and social challenges. It reminds us to continually enhance our political literacy and social responsibility, to actively engage in public affairs, and to strive toward a society marked by fairness, justice, and democracy. As Franklin himself once declared, "I never had luck, nor do I ever hope for luck. My highest principle is, I will never, under any circumstances, yield to any difficulty." This unwavering conviction and fearless courage are precisely the qualities we need as we pursue political enlightenment and social progress. Alright, that's all we have to share today. From the enlightenment of knowledge, through the awakening of politics, to the wisdom of transnational diplomacy, Franklin used his own experiences to demonstrate how one can find their true place amid the tides of history and ultimately achieve greatness. We hope that this piece of history not only enriches your understanding but also sparks a moment of perseverance and passion in your heart. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, share it with more friends, and feel free to leave your thoughts about Franklin and his era in the comments section. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. We'll keep bringing you more exciting historical stories. Thank you all for watching, and see you in the next video.